His take on TARP is Republican Congressman from Louisiana, Steve Scalise. Congressman, good to have you here. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Alexis. Good to be with you.
So, Congressman, we now know that Barney Frank is going to go ahead with the House Financial Services Committee. Of course, he's the chair of that. He's going to have this conversation about some of the guidelines that he wants to put in front of TARP. Many of your co-workers on the Republican Financial Services Committee asked him to postpone this discussion. He's going ahead with it. What does this suggest for you about the future of the second half of the TARP funds?
Well, what it suggests is I think they're trying to put it on a fast track to go and grab the remaining $350 billion. And even in Barney Frank's legislation that's going to come up later this week here in the House, it broadens the ability for the Treasury Secretary to use that money for more auto bailouts, for local government bailouts. So I think they're going the wrong direction. When we know that this first bailout didn't work, this is the time to rein in that money, protect that remaining $350 billion for the taxpayers so they don't see more of this money go down the drain rather than broadening the use of it.
You know, it's interesting, Congressman. I don't know if you had a chance to see some of the testimony or the speech yesterday that the Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke gave at the London School of Economics. I'm sure if you didn't see it, you heard bits and pieces of it, but he suggested that the need and access to more of those TARP funds to help shore up financial institutions is sort of a foregone conclusion. In fact, he talked about whether or not we need to create a good, bad bank scenario or, in fact, go buy those troubled assets. When the Federal Reserve Chairman is saying that, does that give any more credence to the need for the second half of the money?
Well, the Federal Reserve Chairman and the Treasury Secretary for the last 3 months have been going around kind of beating this drum that the federal government needs to get actively involved in the banking system. And really, I think it's the wrong direction. I think that you can see, even talking to local banks, they didn't make irresponsible decisions, and they're real concerned about the federal government's involvement up to this point. They surely don't want to see even more involvement down the road. So, you know, while some people that helped create this problem might want more power, I think the federal government needs to pull back and get out of the banking business altogether. That's surely how our founding fathers intended it, and it hasn't worked.
Right.
And so this is the time where we need to protect the remaining $350 billion before the taxpayers see more of their money wasted.
Okay, so you opposed the initial bailout when we first started talking about the TARP funds. What would you need to see in order for you to agree to allow access to that second $350?
Well, I would need to see that it was going back to the taxpayers, that it was not going to be used to continue doing things that haven't worked in the first place. You know, this $350 billion equates to over $1,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country. At some point, people are going to have to pay that tab. I also don't want to see the value of the dollar diminished by continuing to go deeper and deeper into debt. And this $350 billion grab is only going to bring us further down that road.
Are you not concerned, though, that a company as large as a Citigroup or another financial institution could be on the cusp of some real systemic risk where they have tens and thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers who could be at risk if, in fact, if in fact we weren't doing something to address it? I mean, you might not agree with the cash injections and how the cash injections were used with a lot of these financial institutions, but if we were to go out there and buy the troubled assets, might that make more sense?
Well, you know, if you go back to a few months ago when the first bailout bill was brought forward to Congress, there was a group of members. It started with some Republicans, but in a short period of time, a lot of Democrats jumped on board, too. We presented an alternative plan to this bailout, and it was really rooted in making some real sound tax cuts, waiving capital gains for a period of time, doing some other things that would inject some real confidence into the marketplace so that a lot of this money, there's trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines, people that have just pulled their money out of the markets, out of banks, and are sitting the money on the sidelines. We can inject that money back into the economy. Let the private sector take the risk, not the taxpayer. It was a sound plan back then. I still say let's put that sound alternative plan back on the table rather than continuing to go to the taxpayer.
All right, Congressman Scalise, as always, great pleasure seeing you. Thank you so much.
Good being with you, Alexis. Thank you.
All right, we're going to continue to talk about this topic because coming up, we've got two veteran Washington insiders with us to tell us what, if anything, they think Congress should do with that remaining $350 billion. Wow, it is heated. The debate is hot. We'll continue to talk about that. That's next.